Hello, everyone, everywhere. This is Bob Thibodeau with the Kingdom Crossroads podcast, and you are listening to the Going North podcast with my good friend Don Brightman. Be sure to subscribe to his podcast so you will not miss any of the upcoming episodes, and be blessed in all that you do.
And today on the Going North podcast, we're back at you again with another author, but not just any author. Oh, yeah, baby. The wonderful state of Maryland is known for having all sorts of wonderful writers who have gone on to do wonderful things. And tonight or today or whatever time it is you're listening to this podcast, it is no different. Because this wonderful author right here, she is a happily married lady with 2 kitties who lives in the state of Maryland, who actually double majored in psychology and creative writing at Roanoke College. She has been writing novels since she was 15 years old, y'all. 15 years old. 51 if you're dyslexic. No, but seriously, no, 15 years old. And graduating college as a double major in creative writing and psychology. You got to admit, that is a person with a bright head on their shoulders. And when this wonderful author's not writing, she is either lifting weights, learning a new language, or sleeping. So you got to imagine, folks. We got a wonderful author here who's multilingual and multi-talented. And you're probably wondering who this wonderful author is. It is the one, the only, Victory Parsons. How are you today, ma'am?
Oh, thanks, Don, for the introduction. It's pretty wonderful, I must say. Probably the first time in my life I've been presented such a way. I appreciate that. Glad to be here.
Woohoo! Glad to have you on. Glad to have you on. Yeah, so it's official, your first public entry into the business of immortality, at least in 2018/19. How does it feel?
Terrifying and exciting.
Oh, man, it's going to be a great episode.
Can feel it. You know, I read about you today.
Ah, sweet.
Exodus 3, right? Burning bush?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yep. I was the burning bush, baby. Yep. All my knowledge is smoked by Moses.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know your listeners have heard that one before. I figured I'd zap it right back at you before you got a chance.
Ah, darn, I can't use the tree joke now. Crap.
Sorry.
Surprising, I did not see that one coming.
Yeah, I've done my job. We can just end the podcast here. That's it. That's all I wanted.
That's right. So terrifying and exciting. That is freaking awesome. That is freaking awesome indeed. That is freaking awesome indeed. So with all introductions, as usual, they are not allowed to be 24 hours long. So mind filling in some gaps where I may have missed some things and how you got started on your writing journey at such a young age, even.
Yeah, so it was interesting. It happened organically, I would say. I just started writing stories because I liked to watch a lot of movies as a kid, and I was an avid reader. I still am. So getting lost in these other worlds was a penchant of mine almost. And that just sort of dawned on me that I could create my own place like this, sort of my own sandbox. I really enjoyed writing fan fictions, believe it or not. I think it's actually, before you make fun of that, I do actually believe that it's a good place to begin because you're playing in somebody else's sandbox where they've already gone through the rigmarole of putting together the rules of the realm, how things work, how these characters are, the different character maps, things like that, the canon and all, the big stuff that really matters for stories. And they've already woven that in, and you can just sort of play with the things that they've already created. And exercising in that way, starting small, if you want to use that as a metaphor, like exercising. So you start with small weight in that way. You don't go right for the big plates. Don't have to. Start small. and then work your way up to a place where you can safely create and comfortably create, not necessarily safely, but have more comfort in creating your own sandbox and then playing in it from there. So making your own rules, making your own characters that are, everything is as strong as you can make it, and it's your own creation. So I sort of built up from that, starting when I was 13 or 14, and then I wrote my first novel thanks to NaNoWriMo, believe it or not. And I know some people pronounce it NaNoWriMo, but I'm one of those. I like the re sound for whatever reason. So it's NaNoWriMo to me, and that was, I was 15, 2010, is that right? 9, 10, something like that. Very first time I'd ever heard of such a thing. I found it online, independent of any organizations or prior knowledge, and just decided to go for it. So I wrote 50,000 words in a month, and it felt amazing. And from there, that was probably the biggest spark, really. And then I discovered this Young Writers Workshop at the University of Virginia that they put on. It's an annual thing. Only about 100 kids get accepted, teenagers, 13 to 18. So it's a pretty prestigious thing to get into because you can get waitlisted pretty easily and also just outright rejected. So submitting for that, it's also kind of expensive. So being a high school kid, middle-class family, not really living on the most stable income at the moment, convincing my parents that I really wanted to try this thing that I'd only been doing for a year or so, didn't really know, it was amazing that my parents, like I say in the acknowledgments in my book, that my parents just took this chance on this young girl with stars in her eyes, because that's just how I felt about this whole venture. And the Young Writers Workshop was 3 weeks long. We stayed in college dorms. We didn't have internet access. All we had was our laptops to write on, Microsoft Word, Notepad, whatever we used. And it was basically like an intensive summer course. So we broke off into these concentration groups with an instructor and these other kids that were a lot like us in the same genres. So there was creative nonfiction, fiction, all that kind of stuff. And it really just proved to me if I could intensively do this for 3 weeks around all these like-minded people who are also intensively writing and not get sick of it, then there was something here. And that was really the beginning of the end for me. And I haven't been able to stop. Every year since then, pretty much I've written a book. So I'm 24 now, so the listeners know I started when I was 15. I've written 8 novels since then. Can't stop, won't stop. I'll write till I die, and that's long story short.
Oh, that is beautiful indeed. Kind of reminds me of one of our past guests, the wonderful Beth Martin, who also was a part of NaNoWriMo. Goodness, just writing that novel, and then, boom, a few years later, just published it as a wonderful book. And, man, you got a war chest, 8 of them. 8 magical books.
Yeah, they're not all great, but I'm happy I wrote them. It's in the practice,
That's right. They're great, but they're great. That's right. That's right. Indeed. All the puns intended.
Always, Dom, always. You should expect it by now.
Yep, that's the only way to be right, is if you're right. But that's freaking amazing, though. It's a real testament to the power of having awesome parents, and that's a gift that a lot of kids usually don't realize until they get a little older in life. It's like, hey, they took a chance on you when you're in your teens, and they believed in you, and they went in and paid for those 3 weeks of awesomeness, and then you came out strong and published 8 magical books. And
well, I haven't published 8, Dom. Slow down.
Oh, I can't speak them into existence. Okay.
Well, we'll see.
Oh, don't worry. I got 5 eyes. I can see it all. It's going to be Name and Lights.
Oh.
That's right. Victory Parsons,
right.
baby. That's right.
I like it.
I mean, the photos and lights, too.
Not even sure I know what that means.
Oh, don't worry. No one knows what it means, but it's provocative. Gets the people going.
Okay. I will take your word for it.
That's right. From one author to another, from one author to another. Well, with all of those wonderful books in the vault and releasing the first one, what led you to finally just saying, you know what, forget it. I'm going to release my book out to the world and just going out there and just bet on myself and see what the world says about it?
Well, it's interesting you asked that because this book, which is The Forgotten Prince, is like a, as you know, but for the listeners out there, it's a sci-fi fantasy type, sort of new adult. It's not exactly young adult, but it's not exactly adult either. It's sort of that middle ground, college age, so not teenager, but not adult, strictly speaking, in today's terms. Emerging adult, I think, is another term that some newfangled librarians are using anyway. But it is one that I wrote while I was about that age. So it was freshman year in college, and it started out as a NaNoWriMo project and then grew into something much more than that after November was well over. And it grew into something more than just one book, too. So it's actually the first in a trilogy, which that's the most profound reason why. Not most profound, I guess, but one of the most important reasons, I guess, for my rationale in figuring that this needs to be the first one, because there are two that come after it, and there's nothing like the motivation of the masses to get things done, So pushing myself through to revise this thing, get it out there, and then have these other two books sort of waiting in the chamber and having people, hopefully, maybe not, and this could be my own perception, and perception is a very powerful tool as well. So just the perception of people waiting on me to get these things done is going to help motivate me as well. So just really greasing the wheels in that way. One of the other really important things about getting this book revised and out there was that I called upon two family friends that have known me since I was a little girl. I mean, we're saying grade school probably. And they've known me and my family for a long time, and they elected to be my editors, basically. And one of them is a writer himself, Greg Brumbach. He's an emerging writer. He hasn't completed a work just yet, but he is in the middle of something really incredible, and we've been swapping some ideas and things, but he's more the writing side. And then his wife, Kimberly Brumbach, is the more editorial, grammar, typos, punctuation, that sort of thing. So a tag team from heaven. I mean, these two guys, they dedicated their time. I didn't pay them anything. They didn't ask for payment, that sort of thing. So I really needed to honor that dedication to this work because it's definitely a team effort. I know you know this too, Dom, being a writer, that authorship is not, although they may call it solopreneurship when you go the indie author route, it totally is not. I mean, you have this whole team of people, not only support, but actual people that are contributing their effort and time to this venture of yours as well. So that's really just to get that out into the universe and have their name stamped somewhere on it too was really meaningful for me.
And very eloquently put in the dedication page, I might add. Each person almost got their own separate chapter, looks like.
Yeah, I think that recognition is necessary. I mean, writing a book is a lot of fun. It's a lot of work. But like I just said, I mean, it's a huge, huge venture, and it's a whole fellowship. It's like Lord of the Rings. Frodo didn't do it by himself. And I'm just like Frodo. I've got a whole band of people that even if they're not by my side in that moment, in Return of the King, where it's just me and Sam up there on Mount Doom, like we've got all these other people across the world that are rooting us on and helping us out. So
that's right. Rooting you along, not grooting you along. That's right. Yeah.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
That's right. Especially Baby Groot.
Yes. Baby Groot is the best. I would love to have that on my desk.
Well, as always, that is a beautiful thing when you have folks around you to help you out, especially friends of the family from a long time. It's helping you to polish your wonderful shoes for folks to walk in, the metaphorical shoes of a book. They can just walk in the story of another person. That's right.
Yeah.
That's right indeed. That's right indeed. And I got to admit, your book is pretty interesting the way it's aligned. It's instead of chapter titles, it's just different dates. And funny enough, this year, well, I wrote this basically almost a decade ago, so who knows what the heck is going on. But still, it's like, yeah, all these dates in here, and look at 2019 all the way down to 2026. Freaking 7 years into the future, we're going to have a new random president. Like, what inspired just the whole Children of Time series itself?
Oh, gosh. Well, those have some pretty deep roots in Doctor Who, I would have to say. I don't know, that whole universe is just so massive. And I can't say, I must say, disclaimer, I can't say anything about any of the most recent seasons. I'm talking with the reboot in the 2000s, David Tennant as the 10th Doctor, and then Matt Smith as the 11th. Dom, I have no idea if this makes any sense to you, but for those of you listening, those two doctors just changed my life. And they opened up this whole world of time travel and the space-time continuum and all this stuff, just really amazing ideas that are just totally fantastical. I mean, nothing really rooted in actual science, sort of whimsical fantasy, but amazing. And the characters were great, at least as far as I can remember. It's been a while, and it was profound to me when I first watched it several years ago, and impressionable teenager and all that business. But it stuck with me, and that is important enough to me. So time travel has just always been, since then, a very intriguing concept to me. And now I'm not talking, like I said, in the way of actual science that's out there. I'm not Neil deGrasse Tyson over here going to explain the Tesseract and the fourth dimension to you and all that kind of stuff. Very loose grasp on that. So it's not any of the science that I may allude to in this book is not super fleshed out, and if it is real, it's not too difficult for most to understand, for pretty much everybody, because I will be the first to say that science was not my strong suit in school. So time travel's just always been really interesting to me. And just so the listeners can know, because I know, Dom, you're reading it right now, so you're starting to get a feel for it, and the back of the book summary explains it pretty well, but that there's this sort of sect of beings that can time travel just in themselves. So their existence is that they can manipulate time. So they don't need a TARDIS, for instance, like Doctor Who kind of a thing. They don't need a device, an external device. It's all internal. To me, that seems like a fairly new idea. I can't say that I've seen that anywhere. So just like we have trolls and dwarves and fairies and elves and all manner of different creatures and mythologies, I thought, well, what about these kinds of people? We have superpowers with superheroes in the Marvel comics and DC and all that kind of stuff. But what about something that's not larger than life in this way? What if there's something that's a lot more personal and heritage based and concerns this people that are very specialized and they're hated in this way. There's a lot of hatred in their history. So I'm just trying to touch on a lot of very basic human issues, I suppose, but in a very fantastical way, which I think is a wonderful platform that sci-fi fantasy provides almost inherently. You can talk about pressing issues today, right now, but put them through the filter of sci-fi fantasy, and you can present them in a lot more palatable of a way and a lot more open-minded of a way, I think. it's easier for people to digest.
Oh, yeah, just like some yogurt.
Yeah, exactly. Get those enzymes. Easy on the gut.
That's right. That's the new sales pitch for your book. This book is easy on the gut.
Yeah, okay. I'll tab that one away. Can't promise you'll ever see it, but sure, Dom. Sure. People might get the wrong idea.
That's right. It's a nice, thick book. It talks about children. Don't have to wait 9 months, and it's easy on the gut. That's right.
Oh, my.
Yep, 9 months, children's time. Yep. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, that went south, but taking it back the way north. But yeah, it's really true, though, the wonderful world of sci-fi and the wonderful time travel and the fact that it's an internal device. It's not like some random phone booth where you have to just jump in and then hope that you end up in a good place or possibly a bad place trying to turn it into a good place. And even have well, I know you're a Bible reader, but the main character, Malachi, being a messenger or an angel, so I'm guessing some biblical references are probably hidden in here too.
Yeah. I think probably some conscious and some definitely subconscious, because that is the way I grew up. And I grew up as a Christian, and so a lot of that just rings very true to me in the salvation and all that business. Angels and demons exist to me, that kind of a thing. Some people might think that's woo-woo and whatever, but the supernatural is out there in some way, shape, or form that we don't see. So, but yes, there are definitely some little nods in that direction, because it is an important facet of my life growing up and today too. I'm not a renounced Christian or anything like that. I'm still every day trying. Like I said, I read about you today in Exodus 3. Try to do that every morning. Get some of that in. Hang out with my friends. So.
Oh, man.
Pretty fitting, though. I thought that was hilarious, the timing, because I have a chronological Bible reading sheet that I go through. So I have 365 days parsed out, and each day I have a set bunch of chapters to read. And I'm actually behind today because yesterday morning I didn't wake up early enough. So this morning I had double duty, and it just so happened I was reading Exodus 3. I thought, oh, that's too perfect. Of course, it would be the day that I'd have my podcast with the burning bush himself.
Oh, that's just too freaking perfect. Yep. Can never look at that Bible verse the same anymore now.
No, definitely not. Even 20 years from now, I'm going to read that again and again and just shake my head. Oh, God. That guy I used to work with, so crazy. Got 25 personal development books out now. Going North, volume 25. TED Talks, all the good stuff. Yeah, right.
Well, all righty, back to the wonderful woman who loves to win, known as Victory. So, any timetable on a possible follow-up to the first book, or are you just looking for possible positive reception enough, like looking for like 100 folks to be like, hey, I love the book, where's the second one? Or is there just like some, I guess, wherever the wind blows, just take it one day at a time?
Well, I try not to just let the wind blow me in certain directions, I mean, going north kind of necessitates having some sort of timeline, some structure, right? So I try to have some modicum of discipline most days, not every day. This week has been kind of falling off the wagon in a lot of ways, but, I'm no Jocko Willink over here. I can't be disciplined every single day, 365 days of the year, so. But I'm trying. I would say, actually, that the second and third books are written in their skeletal structures anyway. Most of the main stuff is on the page. Because these are, all three of these, this whole trilogy, they're 3 of the 8 that I've written over the last 9 years or so. So they've been in the vault for a while. This first one, I just had to spend a lot of intense time revising heavily, and I'm going to have to do that for these next 2 as well, because there was a lot that I altered in the first one, where for consistency and continuity's sake, despite that they go back in time, that this is actually more of a prequel, because it has to do with Malachi, the main character in the first book, with his ancestors. So it's sort of telling the story of how he got here and how much of a struggle it has been, without, not in the way of, so if mom loves dad and then this is what happens, that's not how he got here, obviously. That's for those romance novels on the shelf. We know plenty about that. In that way, actually, these books are pretty G-rated, which is good. I'm not one to want to write that kind of stuff. Anyway, a little tangent there, but it goes back and talks about his grandfather and grandmother and then their kids and things like that. So it doesn't advance into the future. And I believe maybe you asked me this, or maybe someone else at work asked me if I was going to consider advancing it into the future then, because paradoxically, it kind of goes in a weird order. So this first book is actually the last one in the timeline. Right, so it's the most recent one. And then the second book is actually the earliest one. And then the third book is the middle point, if that makes any sense at all. If I had a whiteboard, it'd be a lot easier to explain. So then somebody had asked me if I was interested in furthering Malachi's story, because by necessity, these other 2 books don't really talk about him in that way, and he's still got a lot of life to live after the first one. Spoiler, he doesn't die, I guess, which is good. It's a good positive thing.
Sweet.
Not that there's really that much of a worry, but he does go on quite a hero's journey. Plenty of struggles. And I'm not really sure about that, because these 3 books have been written for a while. I'll have a lot of revisions to do still in my future. To answer your question directly, I do plan, since it's only January of this year, although January is quickly coming to a close. It's already almost February. I do plan by the end of 2019 to have the second book revised and out on the market. Because I don't know about you, but I have been one of those people that if I see that there's a series that's not finished yet, I will not even read the first book, because I like to blow through stuff if I really like it, and I don't like to wait. So, just on the off chance that there's one person out there that's just chomping at the bit after reading this first one and needs the second one ASAP, then I will dedicate it to them. That's totally cool. And like I said earlier, if not, if it's all just perception and it's in my head, that's still perfectly good motivation for me. So we'll see if in the coming years I'm interested in, and because I might be, this might be a venture that takes off, because I've spent so much time in this universe already. I would imagine it's probably like the beginnings of Tolkien's adventure in Lord of the Rings, that whole universe, Middle-earth and all that, because writing the Silmarillion, he wrote the creation story for his own universe, basically. And he's written so many other works, and it just, oh my goodness, thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of words dedicated to just this one idea. It's just so amazing to me, and I could almost foresee that happening with this. So we'll see. There may be some other offshoots of Malachi's further adventures in the future, and There's also another character. No, I'm not going to mention it because he's kind of a big deal toward the later part of this book and in the timeline itself. So across all 3 books, very important guy. And he only really gets mentioned. He's not actually a main character in that way, that there's no active dialogue. He's not ever in the room with these people because he's not alive. But I've been wondering maybe I should go back and do sort of a mini-series on all of that. So we'll see. That was a great question to ask, and that was a very long tangent of an answer. But we'll see. Who knows? I could be possessed. Could be possessed to write more. I'd love to. I love these characters. I kind of miss them.
That's right, indeed. Ain't nothing wrong in terms of being possessed, at least in terms of writing something good. Possession by demons, that's something totally different, and I do not condone that at all. That is something way out there.
Yeah, I don't have enough salt in my house to protect myself from that. Holy water, where do I get some of that? Just thinking.
Yeah, just grab a sticky note, write holy on it, put it on a Deer Park water bottle.
Yeah, I guess that's how that works.
That's right. And then the vampire just smacks the water out your hand and bites the neck. Be like, that don't work. Let me stop. That's horrible.
Yeah, pretty much. That sounds like a college humor sketch almost. It's just so absurd. It's hilarious.
That's right. From time travel to vampires. That's right.
Yeah, no, sorry. Never doing that crossover.
No Victoria's vampires?
No.
Oh.
No vampires, Dom. Sorry. Those have been murdered as far as mythological creatures go. Way too much literature out there on vampires. You just can't compete.
Yep. I guess that means I have to take hold and write a vampire of a story of Dracula in the Hood. Yep. That's right.
Yes, you should definitely do that. I was just going to ask you if you're interested in writing fiction. There you go. You've got your idea. The next urban fiction. The Woodlawn peeps will love it.
That's right. The billionaire Viking vampire who goes to Compton. That's right.
Yes. All right, man. 2020. Let's go. That's your next book.
No, it ain't. I ain't calling that. So starting writing at a young age, finally went ahead and waited almost a decade to put out book number 1 and got a wonderful plan. It's pretty interesting, though. I mean, the first book being the last book in the story, then the third part of the trilogy being kind of like the cream in the middle of the Oreo to keep it all together.
Yes.
Kind of interesting.
Yeah, I can't say really how I came up with that. It's not a stroke of genius by any means. It sort of just happened that way, which is just kind of what happens with writing, especially fiction writing. A lot of times, just as Stephen Pressfield would say, you just got to put yourself down in the chair in front of your notepad or your computer and your blank page and just do the work. Just see what happens. A lot of times the quote-unquote muse, which I'm not sure that he really uses that word in the same way as some people do, but the muse will help you in your journey. You got to do your part first. And that's just sort of what resulted from that. Just sort of wrote, and it came out that way. We'll see how it goes. I'm sure some people will be annoyed with it. But hey, Star Wars kind of was able to get away with that sort of thing. With the numbers of because we have 1 through 3 and then 4 through 6. At least the original Star Wars. I have no clue what this new reboot is about, but because they came out in reverse order, so it was 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3. Anyway, so
that's how
not to
you do
liken my stuff to Star Wars at all, because it's not.
Too late.
Yeah, I guess. I'm dropping a lot of references here with Lord of the Rings and Star Wars and things like that. Disclaimer, I'm not putting myself in the same boat as any of these geniuses. All right.
Yeah, she is.
Done. No. No way. I just like to write. It's fun.
That's right. She likes to right, not left. That's right.
Well, if right means north, then yeah, we're getting somewhere.
Oh, man. Freaking amazing guest today. This is freaking awesome. Back to back. Oh, man. Well, you've been dropping references all night. So, speaking of random references, I'm pretty sure you actually already probably answered that question, the random books that have inspired you to write. Indeed, you already mentioned the wonderful J.R. Tolkien with The Lord of the Rings, and, of course, Star Wars, which influences a lot of people, probably even influences more people than weed. Any other...
Oh, I don't know about that, actually. I'd love to see those statistics. There's probably a lot of overlap, honestly. Probably both.
Weed versus Star Wars, who wins?
Oh, my.
Oh, man. And then there's the both category.
Yeah, that's quite a Venn diagram. Well, definitely. I mean, Star Wars isn't a book, but as far as media is concerned, definitely Star Wars. I have very fond memories of watching them with my brother when we were growing up. It would almost be our default movie night. It'd be a Friday or a Saturday, not a school night. Finally, we'd have time to stay up a little late and watch something, do something fun. And we would almost just fall back on those. So I've seen all 6 plenty of times. Not one so much, but the rest of them. But I do really enjoy, oh gosh, there were 2 books recently, or two trilogies, I suppose, that just rocked my world. And they're both teen fantasy, because I do find that there's a lot more good quality work in teen fantasy as opposed to adult fantasy, which is a shame. But that's just sort of my experience. Sample size of 1, so I hope people can correct me and tell me I'm wrong. I'd love to see some really strong adult fantasy come on the scene in the modern era. But Laini Taylor is the author of the Daughter of Smoke and Bone trilogy, and that I did not want it to end. All 3 books are pretty good sized, and I listened to the audio. It is fantastic. I mean, very well voiced, and just a wonderful story. Well put together. Interestingly enough, it does deal with sort of angels and demons in a very loose context. There's this sort of divine war thing going on, kind of. I mean, that's a really bad way of putting it because it's not introduced that way, but it's a very creative idea. If you're into that kind of genre, or even if you're not, I would actually use that as sort of a gateway because I think it starts out really strong and the world builds itself up almost without you noticing it, and that's really hard to do in storytelling. There's plenty of sci-fi and fantasy books out there. You see the giant ones on the shelf that they spend 50% of the book building the world, which is necessary because it's sci-fi and fantasy, because usually we're in this place that has never existed before and never will exist. So they have to world build. So it's sort of, oh goodness, an endeavor of its own to adopt this genre as your own. Anyway, so Laini Taylor, Daughter of Smoke and Bone trilogy, that was 2 or 3 years ago, I think I discovered those. And then more recently, it was the Illuminae Files. And this is a tag team effort between Jay Kristoff and, oh my goodness, I think it's Amy something, blanking on her name at this point, but it's a male-female team. They're just writer friends. And it's really interesting the way that they present these two, because I'm a creative person not only in writing, I also very much enjoy graphic design, which is really exciting for me at work. I just started a new full-time position. Dom, I know you know this, but for those out there who don't, and a lot of it is I got some marketing responsibilities. So I have to put together flyers and look up graphics and modify these colors and deal with fonts and stuff like that on, using Publisher and things. And I actually really enjoy that kind of stuff. And so seeing it done well in that visual creativity in such a way is really impressive. So the Illuminae files, you have to read it, physically read it. They have audiobooks. I don't understand why they made audiobooks of this trilogy. If you picked up one of these books, you would understand, because it is named as a dossier, and a dossier is basically a collection of different files. So in this way, it's chat logs, it's security camera reports that are written out. So a lot of that is just normal text, but then there's also drawings that a character made and comics that a character made, and just things like that. So it's a huge collection of all these different mediums, and it tells a story. And it's just fantastic, well put together, great characters once again. This is more of a space military Mass Effect kind of idea. So it's in the future, sci-fi fantasy once again, and it is teen. And these books look huge on the outside, but if you look inside, each page is not covered completely with text. So it has different characteristics about it that make it look like it's huge, but it's really actually a quick read because you get sucked into the world pretty quickly. So space military, but there's on a ship that has to be quarantined. There's some kind of virus that goes around and turns people into these zombie-like husk things that are just very violent and have no rationality, no logic. They don't recognize humans, that kind of a thing. So it gets very dark very quick in that way. So those two definitely in recent years have been very influential. But I would like to throw it back just real quick to Holly Black. And she sort of semi-well-known. I'm not exactly sure what her platform is these days, but she was the author of the trilogy, the Tithe trilogy, and that dealt with like Fae mythology, but in modern day, interacting with humans and things like that. So very interesting crossover there. Holly Black is one of the foremost experts, I would say, in fairy folklore, and most of her books deal with the Fae. And when I say fairies, we're not talking these little fluttery, pixie-looking things that float around and, spread fairy dust all over you. These aren't Tinkerbells here.
Aww.
So, yeah. Very good, strong female authors, too, in that way.
Quite fitting, since you also lift weights.
Ha 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 ha. Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yep, I am trying to be strong, and I'm definitely female, and I'm an author, so I guess we have lots of commonalities.
That's right. The six-pack of awesomeness, baby. And there's only, actually, I should say 8-pack of awesomeness. That's right. Soon to be in your face. That's right, all 8. May even get to, like, freaking Nora Roberts swag, 80 of them. Maybe even more.
Oh, I don't know about that. I have to write a book a day to keep up with that woman.
Yeah, or just goes right under it. Be like, hey, buddy. Nah, that might not work.
Yeah, I'd probably want that. I'd end up selling my soul if I did that. We don't want that.
That's right. Malachi would be very mad.
Yes, he would. I can't abandon him at this point.
Woo! So, random question, one I like to ask every guest, but in your case it's different. So if you were to wake up tomorrow and you were 17 in the current year of 2019, with all of your amassed knowledge and experience, and you have this book published still, what would be the advice that you would give to yourself?
That is always a good one. Well, if I was 17, in this case, I would have just barely been setting out on this adventure of writership. And I would just very simply just tell myself that it's the activity of the writing is the thing that is worth it. Every day. Or even if you can't get to it every day, every week or every month or every year, whatever time you can spend working on this thing. Or even if it's not working on a specific project that you have, even if you sit down and just write a random scene that's in your head that has nothing to do with anything that you currently have ongoing, that is the thing that's worth it. That's the thing that matters. And it's okay not to be building towards something in that way. You don't have to wreck yourself staying so strict and trying to work towards. Say if you're working on a book right now, you don't have to limit yourself to only writing in that book. That will hamper creativity as well if you can't let yourself play around a little bit. In the doing, that's where you'll find the satisfaction. Not in necessarily finishing the product and publishing it and getting it out there. That certainly derives its own satisfaction, but the thing you really should be focused on is just the satisfaction of the doing in the moment.
That's right, in the moment. And writing is worth it. Oh, writing is worth it indeed. That's right, it's worth it. That's right, just put on a T-shirt, writing is worth it.
Yeah. It's hard work, but it's worth it. And it's easy to get wrapped up in that idea of, well, I'll just be happy when this thing is done. I'll be happy when this thing is published. Like Brian Tracy says, I'll be happy when. No, just be happy now. Doing it now, being in that mindset. Be happy now. That's enough. That's better, actually.
Heck yeah, because when may never show up.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah. So speaking of when never showing up, let's just make it show up right now. For those who want to keep in touch with you and all this you're doing and be notified when book number 2 gets released from the magical mental womb, what's the best way to keep in touch with you?
Well, I am an author on Goodreads. You can find me, Victory Parsons. Just got that one book now, so if you go, Children of Time is also a Facebook page that you can like, and that's probably the most direct path to getting any updates. And, if there's going to be a giveaway or anything, or working on this next book, that's certainly going to be what would it be, like the watering hole almost. Like that's going to be the main well of information probably. That's going to be the place that I update most frequently. Although I am pretty bad at the social media thing. So maybe you can give me some tips, Dom.
Yep, just kidnap some emails. Random people. Spam their inbox till eternity. And when they unsubscribe, you send them twice as many emails out of spite.
Okay. Sounds like you're going to invite yourself into email hell.
That's right. Nobody's safe, not even me. Got a big inbox. And man, it's hell to clean it. Oh, gosh. Woo. Well, there you have it, folks. Go on ahead and go to the wonderful Facebook and like the Children of Time fan page. Head over to Goodreads if that's your wonderful thing. And then pick up some wonderful copies of the wonderful ebook. It's on ebook and paperback, and I have to say it is a nice thick read, and it's a wonderful book cover. I might add, wonderful Victory needs to get into graphic design because she even designed the cover herself, and it actually looks darn freaking good. So this is an author who is a Jill of all trades, not a Jack of all trades. Jack is off doing Jack-like things somewhere. Jill is here. A.K.A. Victory is here with many trades, and she's mastered a few. That's right. She ain't mastered none. She mastered a few. So any parting words for the folks still listening?
No, you can find me on Amazon, like you just said, paperback, ebook, all that good stuff. Stay tuned. Like I just said, this whole writing thing is worth it, and I'm going to keep doing it, so we're going to keep going north.
Yeah, this guest won all the brownie points tonight, y'all.
Thanks for having me, Dom. I really appreciate it.
Hey there, buddy. Looks like you made it to the end of this episode. Since you made it to the end of this episode, do both of us a favor and stop being greedy. Stop it right now and share this episode with your friends and your fellow podcast lovers, especially those who have book clubs and want to listen to the authors who write some amazing books. Be sure to check out the rest of the backlog too while you're at it and share all those too. And in order to make the rest of your week the best of your week, remember to advance others, to advance yourself.